Today on the Rip and Tear Radio segment, we have a very special guest. My name is Allstin, and with me, if you'd like to introduce himself.
Yeah, this is UnderTheMayo.
We have UnderTheMayo here. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, anything from Doom to fighting games and Doom Eternal linked up, Marauders, and a bunch of other things. But before we start, I'm going to go put this back in the fridge. One sec.
He told me he had mayo, but he didn't say he had any other kinds of food, so that's kind of weird.
Okay, now that's put up. We're ready to go. I want to ask, when we want to very first start out, where did the name originate? How did UnderTheMayo come to be?
Oh, the biggest question I get on all my channel history is, where did that name come from?
I'm curious.
Years ago, like 15 years ago, a friend of mine, my friend, when we talk, we talk endlessly, and we have really just quick ideas that come to our head. And we were attracted to certain groups of words that sound like band names. Like if someone would say something and it sounded like those words together would be a good band name, we would put it on a list. Things like Cinnamon Fake Out.
It really does. No, it really does.
Yeah,
that makes so much sense now.
Cinnamon Fake Out sounds like a great band name, and UnderTheMayo was just one of those that got onto the list. The way it got onto the list was I was working at a restaurant. One of my tables ordered a cheeseburger or something, some kind of burger, and after I put the order in, about 5 or 10 minutes into the order, they stopped me and they asked me if they could put onions on it or something. The point is they asked me to add something onto the burger. So I went into the kitchen and I talked to the cook and I said, "Hey, table 33 wants you to put onions on the burger." And the cook asked me, "Well, where do you want me to put it on the burger?" And I just thought that was the strangest question to ask me.
Yeah.
Like, just put it on there, like where you would normally put it. And I didn't, I kind of froze up. I didn't know what to say. And I said, "I don't know, just put it under the mayo, I guess."
There it is.
And there it was. And just those 3 words just stuck in my head the way they sound, under the mayo, like it kind of flows together.
Yeah.
So I opened up my phone and I just put it onto the list of 25 band names we had. And then a few years later, I started playing some games online and I needed an account name, and I just went with UnderTheMayo for no reason. And people started calling me Mayo on voice chat. I was like, this works.
That does make sense, because you look at those 3 words and it's often a phrase. You look at something like, I don't know, August Burns Red. They have the same formula. So it's right around that. So
it's something that works together.
It does. Now, do you like Mayo yourself, or do you do Miracle Whip? Is Miracle Whip an imposter? Is Mayo the
Miracle Whip is not Mayo. Miracle Whip is like a dressing, right?
Thank you.
It disgusts me. Not as much as Caesar dressing, but it is quite disgusting. But yeah, mayo's great on sandwiches, burgers. Not everything,
Not everything. Not cereal.
But a few things. Mayo's great. I'm not obsessed with mayo, as people might think from my name. It was just a couple words that went together that sounded good.
Awesome. And speaking of,
but hey, it kind of worked out. We have ketchup and we have Spud Hunter.
Yes.
So that was quite a happy coincidence there.
That's something I actually want to talk about here in a bit as we work our way to that. And speaking of which, that kind of leads me to my next point. Talking about ketchup and Spud. How did your journey with Doom start out? Mine was a kid, Doom 95. Where was yours?
It's an interesting topic. It's one that I actually want to put in a video eventually. Maybe a couple of them, my own personal history with the series. But I'll keep it short. Doom was a game that I just kind of saw every once in a while. I played like once or twice as a kid. I was really into Wolfenstein 3D. I played Duke Nukem. I got into Quake eventually, but Doom was a game that just kind of passed me by. I would play it once or twice on a neighbor's computer or a relative's computer, and then I would forget about it. I wouldn't forget about it. That's not the right way to put it. I would think about it obsessively, actually. I would dream about it, and I was in love with it, but I didn't have it. And I had this horrible habit as a kid of not asking my parents to get me the games that I actually liked. Like if I played something, I'm like, I love this game. It wouldn't occur to me to say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, can I have Doom for Christmas?" I didn't think about that.
Just didn't hit?
It just didn't come to me. That's how I ended up with like Ghostbusters on Nintendo.
Oh
right?
Man, yeah.
So I just had a bunch of crap, and then I played it again one more time in middle school, and then I didn't think to get it after that. Even as I was getting into more PC shooters, I didn't think about it. And then like around, like my early 20s, I downloaded it and I played it for like a day or two. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Doom's great. And then I just kind of let it go. It wasn't till 2015 where I was just getting really fed up with a lot of modern games, I guess. I was becoming disillusioned with Mortal Kombat X, and I just wasn't playing anything. I was starting to get into more indie games. I was starting to play a lot of Prison Architect and stuff on Steam. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and play Doom. I never really played it through all the way. And so I got Doom 1 and Doom 2 and Final Doom. I played them from start to finish, keyboard only.
Ooh.
The way it's supposed to be, right?
Oh, that's tough.
Then I played with Mouse Look, and then I played with Brutal Doom, and I just loved all of it. And I was like, this is the greatest game ever. I had finally really experienced Doom, even though I'd already been in love with it for 15 years. I had never really given it the proper play, and I became obsessed with it. And then a year and a half later, I was playing Doom 2016, and just my whole perspective on games changed after that. I've been just in love with it ever since.
Almost comes full circle. I think that kind of plays into how it's a timeless classic. You can come to it. I mean, the series has been around 25 years. You can still come back to it. Still a good game.
It is. It really is the Super Mario of shooters.
I have never heard that, but I like that.
It really is. I mean,
it's
equally important. It's not as big. It's not as big now, obviously. Its impact on the industry and on games was equally, if not bigger, than Super Mario Brothers. So,
well, 3D did come first, but it's not the father of deathmatch, you know?
Yeah, like it did so much, and you can go back and play Doom 1 just like you can go back and play Super Mario 3.
Timeless.
You really can. They're timeless. I mean, they have their issues. You have to know how to appreciate old things.
Yes.
You do, right?
Yes.
It's easy to fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, these graphics are so old and crappy. What a horrible game." And if that's your attitude and you can't be talked out of it, then, you're not going to enjoy it.
You got to look beyond that. As a RuneScape Classic player, you have to look beyond the graphics, firstly. But another thing that when we're talking about games that I used to play, there's a game that I used to play when I was a kid called One Must Fall 2097. It's basically a gigantic robot fighting game, and it's awesome. And you like fighting games. So I'm kind of curious. You've made a comparison before about Doom Eternal having elements that resemble a fighting game. Can I kind of summarize that to quote a movie that I enjoy? What are your favorite ways to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge with Eternal in fighting games?
Well, I got really into Mortal Kombat 9 in 2011. I was always the guy in my group of friends that was better at fighting games than the others, but I was never great. But they were all casuals, and I was the casual who was a little more obsessed with learning the combos and stuff, right? So yeah. I always had the edge. But once I actually met pros, I had my ass handed to me.
That's makes it rough.
Yeah, but once I really got into Mortal Kombat 9 and I started studying of like, what is frame advantage? What is this spacing? What is footsies? What is Oki? What are setups? And like once I started learning all that stuff, it really opened my mind, and it's kind of changed the way I looked at a lot of games. And Doom Eternal is the first game I've ever played, like a shooting game, that makes me think like I was thinking when I played Mortal Kombat. In Doom 2016, and it's not just Doom 2016, it's most shooting games. It's just point the gun at it and then shoot it, and then it's dead. And in Doom 2016, like you fought a Hell Knight the same way you fought a Cacodemon, which was the same way you fought a Baron, right?
Siege mode.
There were very few enemies that kind of had their own thing going, like the Summoner, right? Because it would run away.
Yeah,
that was kind of special. But Doom Eternal really plays up the specialty demon behaviors and tactics. In Doom Eternal, you don't fight a Mancubus the way you fight a Prowler. You just don't.
No, not at all. You can't.
Yeah, you can't.
You shall not.
Yeah, right. And that's what makes it so interesting to me. That the enemies have such unique movement behaviors and different levels of aggression, and the weak point system is really well implemented, and to where it feels like, like Hugo said, that it starts to feel like a dance when you start fighting a Mancubus and you drop a grenade on him and hit him with a rocket, and then when that grenade explodes, you can run in and do your blood punch. You're playing the footsie game. You don't want to get too close to certain things. You don't want to be too far from others. It feels like a fighting game. And
Yep.
I think that's one of the reasons I really liked the Marauders, because I was like, "Oh, wow, like, I feel like I'm fighting myself now. I'm fighting something that is equally fast, equally as protective of itself."
That was
And,
their goal.
yeah,
That
and
was
that was their
what they
goal,
wanted.
and not everyone's into that, I get that, but I
Right.
am
Yeah.
super, super grateful that they implemented something that went that far.
I love it myself. I love the challenge.
Yeah.
But thinking about Eternal and fighting games, if we're going to kind of spin it around, I like to have each interview have a fun little question about it. If Eternal were a fighting game, a legitimate fighting game made by id Software in the style of Mortal Kombat, which demon would you main? Which one would be the only thing you fear that you would hate to fight?
Okay, so 2D fighting game, I'm thinking like
Yes.
MK9 style, jeez, man, I've gotta think of their abilities.
I think a
I
pinky would
think
be
I
something to mess with.
a picky would be cool. I think I might have to go with Whiplash.
Oh,
I think the Whiplash would be awesome. He's got those like long to mid range whipping attacks and the ground burst, and then he could like duck under high attacks and projectiles with his slithering move.
oh yeah.
He could use his tail as like a trip, like a low sweep. He's skinny and fast. Yeah, so I think the Whiplash, and the enemy that would be the worst fight against is actually my favorite enemy in the game. That would be the Carcass,
Ooh,
probably.
the shield. More than just a
Yeah.
shield, though, right?
Yeah. The shield and his wild spinning melee attack, which just takes me out of my trip every time I play. And I get close to him thinking, oh, yeah, it's the Carcass. He's got those lasers and the ground thing and the shield. I'm just going to super shotgun in. And then I get close to him and I don't kill him. And he starts spinning like he's on crack. And like his melee attack is so wild. I can see that in a fighting game.
It all comes back. That's exactly what it wanted from their games. I can see the parallels. I can. They
Absolutely.
wanted
Like,
you to have differences.
these enemies are like characters in fighting games. When you play, you can talk Street Fighter or Tekken, whatever you want, but I talk Mortal Kombat. And like when I play Mortal Kombat, you don't fight Reptile the same way that you fight Katana, right? And you don't fight Katana the same way that you fight Cyrax. Like there's different ranges you want to be at. There's different abilities that they have that are counters to things that you can do. There's certain things you have that are advantages over certain characters, and Doom Eternal follows that discipline. And I don't know, it just creates such a rewarding and dynamic experience to dive into.
And it goes for just any fighting game. Like you said, you can talk Street Fighter, Tekken. Me, like I mentioned, One Must Fall. You don't fight a Jaguar the same way a Pyrus, the same way a Thorn, the same way Katana, the Curtis. It's all different. And that is what I like about Eternal, and I think you do too.
Yeah, definitely, because there's so much more to talk about. Like in 2 months, I've uploaded like 35 videos, and they're not all strategy videos.
Well,
Plenty of that stuff.
yeah.
So playthroughs, talking about other games. But in all the Doom Eternal stuff I put out, like there's so many interesting elements of the game to talk about. I mean, I could do a series just talking about every single enemy in the game individually. Like that's how interesting the game is.
There's so much stuff for anyone, and you can run any percent speed runs if you like, 100%. You can be a master level player, a battle mode. There's just so much. And the skill difficulties let anyone partake in it to their level, which is really cool.
It is really good. It's excellently made for new players and for veterans.
Now we have DLC coming, which is even more.
Can't wait.
I can't either. And you're talking about making these videos and doing all these things. You're getting involved with the community too. And there was a picture. I'm going to take it back here a couple weeks ago, or however long it was at this time. You posted a picture of a potato, a bottle of ketchup, and a jar of mayo. And you said, what is going to happen next? I guessed it was going to be a Cacodemon Pain Elemental video. Potatoes, tomatoes. If you watch Big Mac Davis, that's kind of his thing there. I was wrong. What was that? KMS Ketchup Mayo Spud. How'd that come about?
I've known Ketchup for a while. So me and Ketchup go back to MK9. If you only know Ketchup from Doom or Quake, then you may not know that his twin brother Mustard, they are the Ketchup and Mustard, the Condiment Brothers, and they have mained Cyrax and Sector, the red and yellow robots, since early Mortal Kombat days. I want to say like Mortal Kombat Deception and Armageddon and stuff. We didn't talk. They started making a name for themselves in the mid Mortal Kombat 9 days. But around 2012, Ketchup started making strategy videos for Mortal Kombat, and I was already doing that starting in like 2011. He started doing videos for Quan Chi, and Quan Chi is my main guy, and so I was like, hey man, Ketchup, we gotta talk about this stuff. it would be cool to do like a Ketchup and Mayo presents Quan Chi thing. We were like, yeah, that'd be cool,
Oh,
but it just never happened, right?
be good.
And
Okay.
I stopped playing MKX after a couple months, and he stayed with it, so it just wasn't going to happen. And then around 2017, I saw that he was doing Doom multiplayer stuff, and he was doing Quake Champions commentating, and I was just like, oh man, that's good. I'm glad that things are going good for those brothers. They deserve it. And then, nothing really happened. I would talk to him every once in a while, just like say hi. And then Doom Eternal happened, and I made that first Marauder video, and suddenly I got all this attention to my channel, and I found myself making more videos, and I started reaching out to people, and I mentioned it to Ketchup, and he had already been watching my channel. I was like, oh, okay, great. So he already likes what I'm doing. I like what he's doing. We do very different things. I said it would be cool if we could set up a podcast and just talk about stuff. And we were, and he was in right from the moment I mentioned it. And we weren't sure who to bring in as a third person. Our podcast, my inspiration for it is a podcast called the Combat Tomb Podcast, KTP. Back in the Mortal Kombat days, there was a great podcast between K7, 16-bit, and Slips that they would bring on a guest every week. I was one of those guests at one time, and there's probably over
Awesome.
100 episodes over the years. But a lot of it, eventually, they just kind of turned it into a podcast where they just talked about whatever. They would talk about Mortal Kombat, but then there'd be an hour of them just talking.
Nice.
And it became just the greatest thing for the community. Everyone loved it. I love it. So I was like, we should start something like that. We were looking for a third person and didn't know who to bring in. My first thought was Midnight, but Midnight seems very focused on lore on his channel and not so much on like strategy gameplay stuff. So we weren't sure if that was going to be the right dynamic. I got the Spud Hunter on there, and Ketchup already knew him anyway. So we were like, hey, that'll be cool. So we brought him on and then set up the podcast, and it was really fun. I set up all those questions. I acted kind of like as a host to make sure everything went smoothly, and it went well. Now we're 2 episodes in. We're going to wait for the next update to do the next episode. And speaking of Midnight will actually be our first guest.
Oh, nice.
He's already confirmed.
Very nice.
So that'll be cool. I'd like to make it something that we can put out from time to time, just something for the community. I'm not expecting it to be like global phenomenon, but for people who like to listen to this stuff, I think they deserve to have something.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong talking about Doom Eternal strategy and that sort. I'm a huge strategy analysis nerd. I will talk for days and days on it. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool, man.
And we have 3 different aspects of the game. I'm more like game analysis. Ketchup is focused on multiplayer, and Spud Hunter does like speedrun stuff. So yeah, we get 3 different perspectives.
I like what you did there. That's something too. We'll make sure we give everyone links to if they want to go check that out. Speaking of,
appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of strategy and analysis, we talked a little bit earlier about the skill sets that you're going to need and you can develop as far as looking at the different enemies and that sort of thing. What do you think, as we both have completed Ultra Nightmare, the biggest skill set you need for UN? Is it memorization? Is it aim? Is it the Doom Dance in general? What do you need?
Wow, that's an interesting topic.
Other than everything that you've been shown and taught. So maybe, for example, you look at the memorization of the spawns. Most of them are static. Some are dynamic, like some arch files. I think there's benefit in that. Using all your tools, aim. Some of the things that I look to, at least.
Yeah, I mean, memorization is a part of it. You need to know where certain things are, like the arch files. But, that really wasn't a big part of it for me. I'm going to tell a little story. When I started my Ultra Nightmare runs, which was a bit delayed because I've been so focused on the channel, but finally I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down this weekend and I'm going to just grind it. If I don't make it through, I'm at least going to get good at it. And I looked up the Spud Hunter's advice on this. I mentioned this in the podcast. He has a video about getting ready for Ultra Nightmare.
Oh, yes.
And he has a lot of good advice in there. And he talked about using the precision shot and chrono strike. And I was like, he makes a lot of sense. Precision strike is a great mod. You can take out that Arachnotron weak point from all the way across the screen. It's really good. It wasn't my mod. I prefer the micro missiles, but I was like, you know what? I need to give myself the advantage and just get through that first Ultra Nightmare run. Like, there's plenty of runs to come in the future where I'm having fun. But you just got to get that first win,
Yep, the gold skin.
Just like the first 2016 Ultra Nightmare run I did. I just spammed the hologram and the upgraded remote detonation and just destroyed everything. It wasn't exactly fun, but I made it through.
It worked.
And so I started playing with precision shot, and I had like 25 horrible runs where I didn't make it past level 3. And eventually I was like, screw this, I'm going back to micro missiles. And that first run where I went back to micro missiles, I made it almost to Urdak.
Oh.
That was that run. That was that famous run on my channel where the gargoyle killed me at the end of Necrovault 2. That was that one run. Was that first run I did with micro missiles?
That hurt to watch.
Yeah, it was infuriating. But you know, like from that, what Spud Hunter said is correct. Like what he said is right. The precision bolt is the better mod for doing that. But what I learned from my change back to micro missiles is that you can't always rely on what is arguably the better thing, the better mod or the better strategy. You have to rely on what you can use to better communicate your strengths. And I was able to communicate to translate my strengths better in the early game by using the micro missiles, because that's how I communicate through this game. You have to play to your strengths. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to play in a way that works for you, even if that's not what other people tell you is going to help you the best. Because if you force yourself into a play style that is unnatural to you or that you don't enjoy, you could actually end up doing worse. That would be my main advice for Ultra Nightmare. You need to memorize some stuff. You need to get good at your aim. You need to make sure that you're, managing your grenades and your flame belch and keep your ammo restocked. Like, that's all fundamental, right? But that stuff is not really playstyle based. The playstyle stuff is the most important. You need to play to your strengths and focus on those. In those first runs, I used a lot of lock-on rockets because they are strong in the early game. But even though they are stronger, by the time I got to Super Gore Nest and I could put enough points into my remote detonation, I switched over because I just communicate better in the game through the remote detonation. I'm jumping around and dashing around in the air and blowing up things all around me. And I switch to lock-on when I feel like I need it strategically, but I would just use the remote detonation and the micro missiles because I flowed so much better in the game. I felt so much more comfortable in my own play style. And that's what you need to do when you play that game, when you play Ultra Nightmare. Don't focus too much on what people say is better. If that works for you, great. But if it goes against your play style, you could actually end up handicapping yourself. Play to your strengths and use the mods and styles that are actually going to make you feel comfortable in the way that you play, and then you'll have a lot better success.
It's actually something I was wanting to address, was that you're a big fan of the remote detonation, experimenting with other strategies.
Yes, I am.
Is that what pushes you to find other ways, seeing your successes in maybe some other elements that aren't as mainstream or that don't get enough attention maybe?
No, for me, it's more about fun. Like,
I
loved the remote detonation in Doom 2016.
Me too.
I picked it up after a few times that I beat the game, like Ultraviolence and then Nightmare. Then I started using it a lot on Ultra Nightmare. And when I saw some of the videos a few months before Eternal came out, I saw like a clip of someone shooting a rocket in the air and then exploding it. And I was like, yes, the remote detonation is back.
Yes.
Because it's just so fun. Like, you don't have to be accurate at all with it. And you can just shoot it in something's general direction and then turn around and start moving and then keep track in your mind about where that rocket is going and then detonate it as you're moving away. And you don't even have to look at it. You just know that you detonated it on the right spot. I just think it's really fun. As a bonus, it has the utilitarian benefit of staggering enemies and interrupting their animations. So
it really is.
I don't know. I just really like that mod a lot. It works with my play style.
And you mentioned fun. That's something that I think is easily lost as we're striving for the most optimal things. We kind of well, for example, I use Chrono Strike all the time, but lately I've been playing without it because it does change the flow of battle despite being a very, very powerful rune. And
right.
Not to mention, in battle mode, the remote detonation is actually the preferred mod for the rocket launcher. So you actually benefit by thinking outside the box a little bit. Would you agree?
Yes, I think you do, and you never know what you're gonna like, right? You could
Exactly.
find a mod that you're comfortable with, and then experiment with something. Like that's why I really wanted to make that remote detonation video because there were so many people saying that that mod was trash and that lock-on rockets is the only way to go. I'm like, yeah, I understand that lock-on rockets is great for damage. It's great. But remote detonation opens up so many different interesting playstyle quirks that you can do, right? And maybe it's not for everybody. I mean, no mod is for everybody. I like showing people things that maybe they never thought about before. You know, whether it's a mod in Doom or whether it's some obscure indie game that I think people should check out.
I like too how you mentioned earlier something that stuck out to me when you said it that I've actually done in game. You shoot it, you turn around, you mentally track, all right, where is this going? When do I blow it up? And it's a whole other element that's not on
Yeah.
lock on. It's not there.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and lock on takes a little time. You got to focus on it. It's a different kind of play style.
Yeah, and
Like, and fun. Like fun is different for other people. Like for me, the micro missiles are fun, but there's other players that really like that kind of like quick zoom in sniper shot.
Yeah.
Like that's how they like to play.
well, even
Great, man. Have fun. It's a great mod, and if that's how you enjoy the game and that's how it works for you, go for it. I'm not here to tell anyone that the way they're playing is wrong. I don't think you should tell anyone the way they're playing is wrong unless they are complaining about the game.
oh
If
yes,
someone is saying this game is too hard, I just can't get through this part, I'm having so much trouble. Okay, then jump in their comments and say, well, you're doing this wrong, you should be using this mod. If someone is beating Nightmare or even Ultra Nightmare, you don't jump in their comment section and tell them that they're doing things wrong, right?
especially if you haven't played the game before or something to that extent.
Yeah.
Well, something,
course.
you mentioned micro missiles. The micro missiles actually have an element of strategy to them. They have a damage boost. If you make a kill with them on the mastery, you get a bonus damage for the next few seconds. There are elements and things that are overlooked a lot. And
They're
that's
really good.
And that's, even on the Icon of Sin, the boss fight, the best damage is the micro missiles and the full auto shotgun.
Con Maker is they're really
goodness.
good too.
Oh yeah, I use those for her, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of strategies and things, if there's one thing that I can bring up that will be extremely popular, it's the Marauder. It's a very hot topic in Doom Eternal. You made a video about him that absolutely people blew up on. So what I want to know is a little bit of a different angle on this guy. The Ice Bomb strat, I'll show a clip here, is actually going to be patched out. Is that the right thing to do? What do you feel about the Ice Bomb strat?
I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to come down on those kinds of decisions because I feel like, I mean, if you want to do that, you can. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Like, I never do it. I've played around with it a little bit. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But that's not the way I fight him, ever. Because that's not fun for me. And fun is entirely the choice of players in a good game like this. You can spam the most powerful thing in a game if you want to, but you don't have to do that. I've been in numerous discussions in forums about the Marauder where people say that he's boring to fight. And I say, no, he's not. He's really fun to fight. I have fun every time that I fight him. And they're like, well, all you have to do is like stun lock combo him or ice grenade rocket combo, and then he's done. I was like, yeah, but you don't have to fight him like that. You can do all kinds of things. You can do remote detonation. You can do sticky bombs. You can do periodic combos while you dive in and out of the rest of the crowd. Like, there's other things you can do to have fun with him. They're like, well, why would you do that if you can just do this? And my response is always, for the same reason that I don't lock on rocket every time I see a whiplash.
For the same reason
I don't crucible every cyber demon. For the same reason I don't use ice bomb every time I see an archvile. For the same reason when I play Into the Breach, I don't immediately go with Bethany the Ice Pilot and the Freeze Mech, which breaks the game, which allows you to freeze the entire enemy team, and you don't have to do anything, you just win. You don't have to do the most easy strategy. Fun is the choice of the player.
Yeah, and that's in a bunch of ways.
So I don't know if they should take it out. I don't know. If they're going to take it out, all right, fine. I can't imagine anyone being upset that they're removing the ice bomb strategy. That would seem weird to me. If someone's on Twitter saying you've ruined the game by taking out this recently discovered ice bomb strategy. Like, that would be a little absurd to me. So I don't really care that they're taking it out. As to whether they should take it out, I don't know. I'm gonna have to reserve comment on that.
You know, I kind of like something you said earlier too. You're talking about having fun and things. I think it depends. You know, challenge runners. I've done challenge runs. You cripple yourself for the added challenge and fun element. I fought the Marauder in different ways. Sometimes I like to ice bomb for the sheer efficiency and optimization to see if I can get that down. Sometimes I might ballista super shotgun. I might frag grenade. It just depends on what angle you want to approach it and what's fun for you.
Yeah,
That
try
kind of
playing the game with no ice bomb, no ballista, and no health and shield upgrades. So
Brawler.
there's all kinds of things. I'm working on it. I'm not ready to announce it, but I have some notes. Brawler mode is coming.
Brawler mode, I didn't actually originally think about this one at first, but it's a challenge run that you created for 2016 that had some self-imposed limitations to make you think in a different way and approach the game differently.
To make you play it like Eternal plays naturally.
And that's is that what draws you to challenge runs, is it makes you kind of think differently and approach things in a whole different light?
Yeah, I like that it forces you to be more engaged with the systems of the game. Brawler mode was all about taking away the siege mode from the cannon, taking away the holograms so you can't break the AI, you know, taking away your ammo capacity upgrades so you can't just run around with a rocket launcher all day, stuff like that. So taking away the explosive shot from the shotgun, that way you can't really just blow up things from far away with all that shotgun ammo. Using the triple shot of the combat shotgun does two things. One, it encourages you to get closer to the enemies, and two, it eats through your ammo 3 times as fast, which means that you have to use more of the chainsaw. Like, all those elements of Brawler mode work together to create a different kind of playstyle.
And it all depends. Like, we've been centered around the concept of fun, and you can try different things and do different ways to play. For example, I don't think I would do, as of right now, a no weapon mod run of Eternal, because I like strategizing and taking out weak points. But some people, they might like the brute force. So really, I think it really just depends, and I feel like that's kind of the angle you're approaching it from too.
Yes. Yes, it lends itself very well to custom player strategies.
You know, speaking of customization and, you know, looking back and forth, I'm curious. How have you played 2016 since Eternal dropped?
I have only played 2016 for the purpose of recording clips for videos in which I reference 2016.
Okay,
I haven't just played it.
Did it feel any different going back to that, even if it's just for that short bit of time?
Man, it was like unplayable. Like, when Hugo said that you won't be able to go back to Doom 2016, like, that was a big statement, man.
It was.
Like, how can you take what has been my favorite game for 3 years that I have 750 hours of gameplay in? How can you take that game and say you won't even be able to play it?
Honestly, I said the same thing.
That's a crazy statement.
I said the exact same thing.
But at the same time, I believed him.
Yeah.
I was like, I think he's probably right. And I went back to it for these clips, and I was just like, oh, this game is so slow and bleak and depressing, and the enemies are so like bland and dumb. I don't want to call it a bad game. I could never do it. Doom 2016 is one of the greatest games ever made.
Yes, sir.
But here's the thing. It's not just Doom 2016. After playing even Doom 2016, you know what game is really hard to play?
What's
Fear.
that? I've not played that
Fear.
one.
Fear from 2005 is like the last great classic shooter before the first-person shooter apocalypse, which I will be addressing in my 50,000 subscriber video special.
Ooh.
It's got, you know, cool slow motion moves and great action and kind of like John Woo style combat where you shoot enemies and they fly up against the wall. The combat is amazing. However, the walk speed, the movement speed is really slow. The game feels really slow in a lot of areas. But that was kind of the style at the time, like that 2004, 2005 style, like Halo, you know, the Halo games and Half-Life 2, like the movement speed wasn't like really lightning fast. But the thing is, the game is super classic. And so I went back and replayed Fear about 6 months ago. After Doom Eternal got delayed, I was like, I need something else to play.
Yeah.
So I was playing Quake, and I was playing Blood and Duke Nukem, and then I was like, oh yeah, Fear, and I picked it up and I was like, wow, this is so slow. But after about an hour, I adjusted.
Yeah.
And now I'm into it, and I don't feel it anymore. I don't feel the slowness of the movement. It fits with the mood now, because it's like SWAT team coming into a building. Like it's decent pace, but it's not sprinting. And so it's not just about Doom Eternal going to 2016. It's about Doom in general going to any game. And so, like, if you're gonna play Doom 2016 now, I suggest that you give yourself like a 2-week detox. Don't touch Doom Eternal. Don't touch any game that's first person, and then go back to Doom 2016 and have some fun, because you're gonna have the same thing that happened to me going from Doom to Fear, where you're gonna be like, oh no, this is too slow. You're gonna need an adjustment period.
It is a little different, and some do prefer 2016 over Eternal. I mean, I think there are things that it did better in ways, but although I do prefer Eternal of the two, but it is different. It's definitely, I've tried it, and it's an adjustment period, exactly like you said. I'm ready to shoot the cannons off the Mancubi. I'm ready to blast the rockets off the Revenant, dash around. Okay, this is a little funny, but I have my 2016 shift key bound to walk. In Eternal, that's dash. I walked myself instead of dashed myself when I played. So it's just
why do you even have walk bound to a key?
Speedrun. When I did the Legacy New Game Plus speedrun, you had to traverse ledges very carefully, and if you weren't careful, which that's the only time I ever used it. In regular play, I didn't. But still, yet there's a lot of things about Eternal that we talked about, and you as I am are really big into Doom. But you also cover other games. We talked about Mortal Kombat, and we kind of touched on a little. What are some of the ideas you have for future videos that you might want to talk about? Or are there things that you have brewing that are secret?
I would love to talk about what's coming in the future. I am not a Doom channel. I blew up with Doom, but I try to make it clear from the very beginning that I'm not only talking about Doom. I put out my top 10 Nine Inch Nails songs. I did a playthrough of Prison Architect. So I'm not trying to be just a Doom channel. I'm just kind of building it on things I want to talk about. And if you like what I talk about, then you'll like my channel. Trying to grow a niche audience, I guess. And so the things that are coming, I'm going to list off some things, and I can't tell you when they're coming. I really can't, because I've got ideas for 20 scripts. So there's things that are going to come next month. There's things that are going to be out in maybe the beginning of next year. Who knows? I want to talk about movies. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite sci-fi movies called Coherence. I'm going to talk about RoboCop. I want to talk about Predator, if I can think of something to say that people haven't already said before. I'd love to talk about old Silent Hill and Resident Evil games, if I can think of something interesting to say. I want to do more indie showcases. I want to talk about Duskers. I have a video on Duskers that's coming out in 2 weeks that will, I think people will really love that. I have this Wednesday, I guess by the time this podcast comes out, it's already out. So go check out my analysis of the It remake. It's a big half-hour video that talks about the It remake. I just like talking about whatever, like games or movies or music. If I have something that I think I can add to the conversation, I will.
And I've seen you do that in different ways. You covered Dusk on your channel before, which is a really fun game, and kind of paralleled it with Doom Eternal and showed people that if you like Doom, you like Dusk.
I couldn't believe how successful that video was. I was shocked. Even the Into the Breach video, like Into the Breach is a turn-based 16-bit chess game with aliens, and that video did really well. And so that video in particular gave me a lot of confidence that I'll be able to branch out into different things. I'll shout out The Critical Drinker on YouTube. He's one of my favorite YouTube channels. And I am very envious of him because it seems like he can just talk about whatever he wants. He'll talk about Star Wars, and then he'll talk about Predator, and then the next week he'll do a review of Resident Evil 3. It's like he, if he hasn't, and then he'll do a bunch of videos on Star Trek Picard. So that's the kind of dynamic that I like to have in my own video, in my own way. I like my more game system analysis videos and stuff like that. But if you like his style, then I would think that you would like mine too.
That gives you, a lot of different directions you can go with.
Sure.
We talked about even just looking at Doom and Dusk, the mod Dusk that mixes both of those together, yeah, which is wild, and just a lot of different things. You said the movies and all that sort of thing. So if anyone's interested, where can they find you online? Where do they go?
Well, of course, UnderTheMayo on YouTube, Twitter, also UnderTheMayo. You can find Under the Mayo also on Twitch. I'm starting to do some streaming. I haven't done a whole lot, but I'm starting to get into it. I'm almost at my Twitch affiliation requirement. I'm also on Patreon. I have like 8 people on my Patreon right now. The more people I get on there, the more I can focus on this and not having to do my other shitty job. These videos take at least 50 hours each to put together. That is appreciated. Other than those accounts, I've gotten a lot of requests for a Discord. I'm looking into it. I don't know much about the Discord world. I'm going to need some help, but I'm looking into it. So I think soon there should be a Discord. We'll see.
Very nice. Any final words before we wrap up that you want to tell everyone?
No, not really. Just thank you so much for the support and fans of my channel who are there for the 7 a.m. uploads in the morning. I love you. And thank you for inviting me to this podcast. This has been pretty fun. I enjoy this kind of thing. Coming soon, my official Doom Eternal review.
All right. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for hanging out on this. I appreciate it very much. Under the Mayo here. You can find them on all of those different places. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.